They were not supposed to be there. For months, the whispers came from telegram channels and blurred satellite shots, strange 8-wheeled shapes, too fast for tanks, too big for APCs. Then a pattern began to form, footage and images circulating online that many observers interpreted as Italy's B1 Centauro tank destroyers operating alongside Ukraine's 78th Separate Air Assault Regiment. This is no longer just a throwaway rumor. It is a narrative built on open-source reporting and community analysis, and a potentially important one. Not because anyone has confirmed a massive fleet, but because of what these vehicles, if indeed present, would represent. A fusion of Italian Cold War engineering and Ukrainian battlefield adaptation. According to various open-source defense commentators and accounts posting geolocated-style video in late 2025, the vehicles shown carry all the familiar markers. The long 105mm gun, the angular turret, the distinctive 8-wheel stance. On that basis, many argue that Ukraine now fields one of Europe's most recognizable wheeled gun platforms, although it is important to stress that exact numbers and formal confirmation remain absent. And here's the twist. There has been no official, detailed announcement. No proud press conference. No flag-draped rollout. According to Italy's Ministry of Defense Communications, as reported by outlets such as La Repubblica and Analisi Difesa, elements of military aid packages are frequently kept classified or vaguely defined, especially regarding quantities and specific systems. That pattern has led analysts to suggest that if Centauros have been transferred, they would have arrived quietly and efficiently, in line with how much of Italy's support to Ukraine has been handled so far. So what exactly might Ukraine have received? And why would this strange wheeled cannon matter in a war dominated by drones, missiles, and main battle tanks? To understand that, we need to rewind nearly 40 years to a design born from a question very few armies were asking at the time. What if heavy firepower could travel with the speed and reach of a road mobile patrol vehicle? In the late 1970s, Italy faced a clear problem. NATO obligations demanded credible anti-armor capabilities, but the country's geography, with long highways, dense towns, and mountain corridors, punished slow, heavy-tracked formations. Fiat Iveco and Oto Melara set out to build something different, a fast-moving, relatively light vehicle that could engage Soviet tanks at range and then disappear before becoming an easy target. By 1989, their answer was ready. The B1 Centauro, a 24-ton 8-wheeled tank destroyer armed with a 105mm rifled gun capable of firing standard NATO ammunition used by tanks like the Leopard 1 and early M1 Abrams. According to manufacturer data and NATO evaluation reports, it can engage targets beyond 2 kilometers and reach road speeds close to 100 kilometers per hour under favorable conditions. To put that in perspective, the Centauro could outrun most Cold War tanks while matching their firepower class. It earned the Ferrari with a cannon nickname for a reason, even if that line is more style than specification. Italy brought the Centauro into service in the early 1990s. Over 250 vehicles entered the Esercito Italiano. It did not remain a parade piece. It deployed to Somalia under Operation Restore Hope in 1993, providing overwatch and long-range fire support, and later to Iraq and the Balkans, where it escorted convoys and reinforced patrols. In those environments, a fast vehicle with a serious gun and acceptable protection made sense. Italian after-action reporting, including analysis by the Centro Studi dell'Esercito, described it as reliable, accurate, and maintainable in harsh climates. It was never sold as indestructible. It was respected as a tool that worked when used according to its design. Fast forward to 2025. Italy is in the process of adopting the newer Centauro 2 with a 120mm gun and upgraded systems. That transition leaves a pool of older but still functional B1s. Open source analysts looking at Italy's inventory, replacement schedules, and the imagery circulating online have speculated that a limited number might have been provided to Ukraine. Estimates usually suggest a small batch, potentially enough to equip a company or a battalion-level element focused on mobile fire support. These are assessments, not confirmed figures, and they should be treated as such. In the footage shared across social platforms and examined by OSINT communities, vehicles identified as Centauros appear with additional cage or slat armor, the metal grille structures intended to disrupt some RPGs and shape-charge warheads, and in camouflage schemes, consistent with other Ukrainian-operated Western vehicles. If authentic, these adaptations would suggest active integration and customization rather than symbolic deployment. That in itself would tell an important story. Ukrainian crews do not simply receive Western equipment, they modify it for their own doctrine and threat environment. With that context set, the obvious question becomes, what makes the Centauro different from everything else Ukraine already has? To understand the Centauro, you have to let go of the traditional image of a tank. This is not a main battle tank. It does not rely on thick composite armor. It does not ride on tracks. It is not designed to absorb repeated direct hits from 125mm guns. It is not built to grind forward slowly under fire. Its purpose is movement. The Centauro rests on a radical idea for its era, that speed, range, and precision can, in some roles, outweigh extreme armor protection. According to official specifications from Iveco Defense Vehicles and archived NATO testing, the B1 weighs about 24 metric tons and uses a 520 horsepower diesel engine. It achieves a top speed around 100 kilometers per hour on roads and an operational range of roughly 700 kilometers before refueling. That performance is exceptional for a vehicle carrying a 105mm cannon. A Russian T-72B3, as a comparison point, is slower on roads and requires significantly more logistical support per kilometer. The cost of this mobility is armor. The Centauro's welded steel hull is designed to resist small arms fire, shell splinters, and heavy machine gun rounds over parts of its frontal arc. According to the Italian Army's own technical summaries, it can withstand up to 14.5mm fire in certain sectors. That is helpful against ambushes and light threats, but it is not on the level of a modern main battle tank, and it is not meant to be. That sounds risky until you place it back in the role it was designed for. The Centauro was built to find, hit, and get out. It is a shoot and scoot platform. It was intended to fight using range, angles, and information, not armor thickness. At the center of that concept sits the gun. The Automalera 105mm L/52 rifle cannon is a proven NATO standard system. It can fire a wide spectrum of ammunition, including APFSDS, heat, HESH, and smoke. With proper modern rounds, open source data indicates it can penetrate in the range of the mid-hundreds of millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor at typical engagement distances. That is enough to defeat older Soviet-era tanks from favorable aspects and to threaten the weaker side and rear armor of more modern designs. For Ukrainian planners, a vehicle with that kind of weapon, combined with automotive performance closer to an armored car than a tank, offers one clear advantage: fast, precise, self-propelled direct fire that does not always require committing heavy track formations or waiting on artillery. In real conditions, track tanks are powerful but demanding. They are slower on roads, harder on infrastructure, and vulnerable when forced to reposition over long distances. Wheeled platforms like the Centauro can move quickly along Ukraine's extensive road network, reinforce threatened sectors, and withdraw before becoming fixed targets. Its 8 large wheels, independent suspension, and road-focused design make it well-suited for rapid redeployment, provided terrain and conditions are favorable. The vehicle's value is not just mechanical. The Centauro's later configurations feature modernized fire control with stabilized sights, a digital ballistic computer, laser range finding, and thermal imaging. Italian training and validation centers have highlighted its ability to engage while on the move and at night, a capability that many older Soviet-designed wheeled vehicles lacked. Taken together, these traits put the Centauro in a hybrid category. It is part tank destroyer, part reconnaissance asset, part direct fire support gun. It sits between a classic main battle tank and lighter armored cars, or IFVs. In a conflict defined by long fronts, artillery duels, and rapid strikes, that hybrid nature is exactly what makes it interesting. Across a front that stretches for more than 1,000 kilometers, mobility is not optional. It is a survival mechanism. A force that can move its firepower quickly has an edge in plugging gaps, springing ambushes, and reinforcing weak points before an attack breaks through. In that sense, if Centauros are present and properly integrated, a Ukrainian commander needing immediate anti-armor support in a threatened sector might not always have to wait on a distant tank battalion. A wheeled gun element could move quickly, occupy firing positions, fire several well-aimed rounds, and displace before drones or counter-battery fire can correct onto them. It echoes the same logic seen in Ukraine's employment of other highly mobile systems. Strike fast, avoid overstaying, deny the enemy a stable target. None of this removes the Centauro's vulnerabilities. In a battlefield saturated with FPV drones, loitering munitions, and advanced anti-tank guided missiles, a wheeled vehicle with limited armor margins must be used carefully. Even with added slat armor, it depends heavily on concealment, terrain, disciplined movement, and combined arms protection. That said, Ukrainian forces already have experience with similar vehicles and doctrines. The French AMX-10RC, for example, has been used for reconnaissance in force, fast raids, and direct fire support. Official French and Ukrainian commentary has acknowledged both its strengths and its vulnerabilities. It is reasonable to assume that a potential Centauro deployment would mirror this style, a tool for speed, reach, and precision, not a replacement for Leopards or Abrams. This is why the age of the platform is not the key issue. The question is whether it fills a useful niche. The Centauro fills the space between traditional tanks and lightly armed reconnaissance vehicles. It provides heavy direct fire without the full logistical footprint of a tracked tank. That is why, even decades after its introduction, the design still matters in the broader discussion of modern warfare. To test its place in that discussion, we have to set it against likely opponents. On Ukraine's eastern and southern fronts, the primary Russian tanks remain T-72B3 variants and the more advanced T-90M Pro Riv. According to open-source references such as Jane's and the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the T-72B3 forms the bulk of Russia's modernized tank fleet, while the T-90M is positioned as a spearhead platform with upgraded armor, better sights, and enhanced ammunition. On paper, the comparison heavily favors the T-90M. It is heavier, more protected, and carries a more powerful 125mm gun with modern kinetic rounds. The Centauro, by contrast, is not designed to stand still and trade shells with it. But modern Ukraine is not a battlefield of staged duels. As noted in analysis from organizations like RUSI and various Ukrainian and Western observers, the current environment is about sensors, speed, dispersion, and combined arms. What matters is who detects first, who gets the first effective shot, and who can move before they are located and targeted. In that environment, the Centauro's strengths line up with its intended role. It can be deployed on the fringes of engagements, support ambushes, attack supply lines, or act as overwatch from concealed positions. Its 105mm gun, with proper ammunition, is more than capable of destroying many Russian armored vehicles from the flank or rear, or of disabling and delaying them long enough for artillery, drones, or anti-tank teams to finish the job. Its thermal sights and stabilized fire control give it the ability to operate at night and in obscured conditions, which can help offset disadvantages in raw armor. Still, it has to be emphasized, the Centauro is not a miracle weapon. If it is detected and targeted by drones, artillery, or high-end anti-tank systems, it is at serious risk. Its survival depends on how intelligently it is employed. Doctrinally, though, it fits a trajectory Ukraine is already on. More flexible, more networked, less reliant on slow, dense formations. As part of a force that integrates UAV reconnaissance, precision artillery, electronic warfare, and mobile armor, a wheeled gun platform like the Centauro can be one more node in a wider web. There's also a psychological and symbolic element. Russian forces are familiar with the silhouettes of Soviet and Ukrainian designed vehicles. A fast, wheeled, NATO-built gun platform presents a different profile. In the confusion of combat, that unfamiliar outline, combined with strong firepower and rapid repositioning, can create hesitation. Analysts from institutes focused on European security have pointed out that such disruptions, even brief ones, can influence tactical outcomes. Beyond the immediate battlefield, the Centauro question feeds into a larger story. If these vehicles are indeed present, their appearance would reflect Italy's gradual but meaningful deepening of military support for Ukraine. Rome's approach has generally been quieter than that of some allies, with less public detail and more closed-door coordination. A discreet transfer of surplus, but still capable fire support vehicles would align with that pattern. For Ukraine, such a move would be another signal that support is evolving, not stagnating. Early in the full-scale invasion, aid was often about speed and availability. Over time, it has shifted towards more specialized roles: artillery from France, air defense from the United States and Germany, IFVs from Sweden, and potentially wheeled tank destroyers from Italy. Several defense think tanks have described this as a modular support architecture, in which no single system is decisive alone, but their combined presence forces Russia to adapt repeatedly. Each new type of platform adds complexity for Russian planners. New signatures to track, new vulnerabilities to calculate, new tactics to anticipate. Even if Centauros are few, they add one more moving piece. There is an undeniable cultural irony as well. Italy, a country often associated with design, engineering flair, and speed, produced a weapon system that mirrors those traits: sleek, fast, and purpose-built. Ukraine, fighting for its survival, now stands at the center of a conflict where such attributes can be the difference between losing a vehicle and saving a crew. It is a collision of aesthetics, engineering, and necessity. No serious observer suggests the B1 Centauro alone will decide the outcome of the war. Wars turn on industry, logistics, morale, alliances, and political endurance. Individual vehicles are instruments within that larger struggle. But symbols matter. For Ukrainian soldiers, every additional credible platform, every sign that partners are still supplying relevant systems, carries a message. You are not isolated. That message, repeated through tanks, artillery, drones, and perhaps Centauros, is a part of the psychological armor that does not show up on technical data sheets. In the end, the Centauros story in this context is about adaptation, a design from the late Cold War, originally crafted for a different front line, potentially finding renewed relevance in a new era of surveillance-heavy, precision-driven, rapidly shifting warfare. In Ukrainian fields and towns, amid the noise of drones and artillery, it is entirely possible that an Italian-built engine now runs as part of that defense. A crew of 4 could be working in a vehicle that was once meant for a war that never came in Western Europe, now repurposed for the largest conventional conflict on the continent in generations. Somewhere on a tree line or behind shattered buildings, they might line up a shot, fire once, and move before the enemy can adjust. Used correctly, that is the Centauros' role: quiet, efficient, and dangerous in capable hands. A reminder that in a war defined by information, precision, and mobility, the smartest move is often not to stand and trade blows, but to move, strike, and live to fight again. This video is based on publicly available open-source intelligence, media reporting, and defense analysis as of the time of production. Some claims, particularly regarding deployments and specific unit assignments, remain unverified and may change as new, reliable information emerges.